Halo is sacred. The franchise that kicked off the millennium by revolutionizing console shooters ended its first decade having defined how the majority of gamers played together in the digital age. It brought about a social scene of its own, a genuine subculture unlike anything seen before. But under new management, and navigating an industry where it was no longer top dog, the 2010s were nowhere near as kind to Halo. The shooter paradigm shifted and morphed, fitting new mold after new mold until little of what brought us into the fray remained. 343 Industries' efforts, both to recapture the magic of Bungie's games and pave their own way forward for their own, were kneecapped by troubled development and corporate greed, and many are left yearning for the good old days. That said, I imagine quite a few of you are scratching your head right now. Wasn't the entire Halo series remastered and ported to PC just a few years ago? And that is a fair point. You can buy Halo the Master Chief Collection on Steam right now. During sales, you can get the whole thing for $10. It's available on Game Pass, and it's even Steam Deck verified. But while that is certainly the easiest avenue to playing classic Halo these days, it's not necessarily the best one. MCC is in a much better state than its notoriously bad launch back in 2014, but it is still plagued by issues ranging from minor annoyances to some of the most infuriating bugs and awful design I've ever seen. Co-op campaigns are practically unplayable for everyone except the host. Matchmaking map and mode pools suck and aren't representative of the original games. And Halo 1 and 2 multiplayer are 16 flavors of fucked, thanks to being based on subpar PC ports from 20 years ago. As a result of these issues and many more, most players have moved on. Matchmaking for anything other than Team Slayer in Halo 3 on Reach can be pretty slow, if not impossible at times, leaving behind a mere shell of the once great franchise this collection sought to celebrate. Now, even I have to admit that unless you're nostalgic for the specific experiences these four games used to provide, you will probably have an alright time with the Master Chief Collection. Halo looks and plays great at 60 FPS and high resolutions, and the custom games browser and thriving mod scene push the series forward into the future. It's hard to argue against MCC's inherent value, and if you're just looking to play these games, maybe even try them for the first time, you could stop watching right here. But, come on, aren't you a little curious? If Halo MCC isn't the magic bullet it was meant to be, what options are there? What can consoles from 2 decades ago offer that modern gaming hardware can't? And as time marches on, how will the Halo community hang on to its legacy? I've been playing Halo for the majority of my life, and I've been active in dedicated classic Xbox and Halo scenes since 2017. With all that under my belt, I feel confident that classic Halo is in a really good place right now, the best it's been in for a long time. The games are playable, the community is thriving, and while finding your place in the land of the obsolete can be intimidating, I'm here to assure you that it's possible, and to make sure that you and your friends can get in on the fun. It's going to take some legwork on your part, but I promise the juice is worth the squeeze. One last thing before we dive into the games themselves. Get your hand off the mouse, this isn't an ad. I'll be describing and linking to a few fan projects and communities over the course of this video, and because I've seen what happens when YouTubers don't do this, I'm gonna ask that you do your due diligence and read all FAQs and instructions in these servers before asking a single question. And if you do end up asking questions, do it in appropriate places. And by that I mean not the LFG channel in the middle of a scheduled game night. These communities are almost invariably thousands strong, and the moderators do their damnedest to ensure the information is readily available to anyone who puts forth the bare minimum amount of effort. And yet, a new person still asks why their customization isn't working in Halo Reach every single day. As a host, I'm really sick of constantly interrupting the process of playing the game to answer the same questions I've already answered 6 trillion times, so please, be courteous to the devs, moderators, and hosts, and don't demand shit. Read the rules and FAQ before asking for help. If I catch any of you that came from my video being troublemakers or just generally annoying, I'll break your legs. In Minecraft. Got it? Cool. Let's go play some Halo. Halo Combat Evolved changed video games forever. It proved that shooters could be designed for and played on consoles without compromise. It firmly established Microsoft's then underdog Xbox brand, and led millions to lug heavy CRT TVs to LAN parties they'd never forget. But even after Halo wowed the world, no one could have known the incredible influence its sequels would have on online gaming. And as that future came to pass, it's hard not to feel like Combat Evolved was left behind. Launching 2 years before Xbox Live, it completely lacks online play, and with the average gamer having long since discarded their original Xbox, it's harder than it's ever been to play Halo 1 at its best. As briefly mentioned earlier, the Master Chief Collection version of Halo CE is based on the 2003 PC port by Gearbox, which suffers from notoriously awful netcode. 343 has polished it up a bit over the years, but to my hands, it still feels a bit off. And since 4 vs 4 is the most popular search mode, it's all people really ever play. The problem is that most of Halo CE's maps are not designed for 4 vs 4. Spawns are absolutely fucked. Team Slayer in MCC has devolved into each team taking turns spawn killing each other with the pistol. This was obviously also an issue on OG Xbox, but in that version, you had control over what you played. If you had 8 people, you probably wouldn't choose to play Wizard, the smallest map in the game, with open sightlines in every direction. But that control is taken from you in MCC. You'll consistently spawn with the entire enemy team staring at your back. Halo 1 was not designed for internet play, and is probably never going to feel the same over the internet as it once did on LAN. However, when you combine these netcode problems with low player population, long matchmaking times, and suboptimal map and mode pools, it becomes really hard to enjoy MCC Halo 1 over the mounting frustrations. There were a number of things 343 could have done to mitigate this. They could have reworked the spawns, they could have chosen better maps for the 4 vs 4 map pool, or, on a larger scale, designed specific playlists instead of this weird pick-and-choose system that pretty much guarantees 4 vs 4 Slayer is all that ever gets played. Instead, 343 chose to cut corners. And even after sparsely applied fixes, MCC is saddled with a subpar version of a game it sought to definitively remaster. Honestly, I'd recommend foregoing CE matchmaking altogether. Either use the custom games browser, or simply set up private matches with your friends, where you can control as much of the experience as possible to make it a bit more palatable. Halo CE is a category in which the mod scene really saves MCC. Steam Workshop makes it relatively easy to play hundreds of custom maps together over the internet. And if map, mode, and team composition is carefully managed, modded Halo 1 is an amazing time. So, if you're interested in playing a selection of the best maps and modded content the Workshop has to offer, the folks over in the Halo 1 Guide Discord host CE mod sessions on Sunday nights, curating Workshop collections so all you really have to do is subscribe and play. This is likely the best way to play Halo CE via MCC. The stream of new and worthwhile content offsets the general stench of the game's subpar handling, and turns it into something I actually really enjoy. There's a link in the description if you want to get in on that. Now, before I move on to the Xbox version, I would be remiss to completely gloss over the Gearbox PC port. Halo for PC was a subpar port when it was new, and the last 20 years have done it few favors. Expect to spend some time tweaking settings, applying a proper widescreen patch, and remapping the asinine default control scheme. But once you do, there is tons of fun to be had, provided you can find a match with decent ping. I really don't get why most of the community plays massive maps with weird settings, but I enjoyed the few times I found myself in the more traditional lobbies. Even with the awful netcode, Halo for PC played a pivotal role in the Halo 1 scene, particularly the mod scene via Halo Custom Edition. While most of its prominent and worthwhile mods have been ported to MCC, Custom Edition does still have its ardent fans and is worth checking out if you're curious. But with all that being said, if you're going to go through the trouble of playing something other than MCC, chances are you're chasing an experience as authentic as you can manage, and this is the part where I tell you, you gotta go get an Xbox. You can get by on a 360, but for reasons I'll explain in a minute, I really recommend an actual original Xbox for this. While Halo CE predates Xbox Live, its system link functionality does allow for online play via LAN tunneling. You'll need a PC on the same network as your Xbox, and a program called Xlink Kai, which essentially tricks your Xbox into thinking your remote players are on your local network. It's interesting stuff, and in most games, it works great. Halo CE is not most games. Halo 1's host advantage is noticeable even on LAN, but when played over the internet via LAN tunneling, it becomes ridiculous. Worse still, there's a 4 console limit that can't be circumvented. In the incredibly unlikely scenario you have 4 players on 4 consoles in different parts of the country playing together, you can still have 16-player matches, but that's probably not going to be your use case. Luckily, 2 vs 2 is the core CE format of choice, so you can still have a ton of fun with it if you're willing to put up with the netcode problems. The Halo Classic Hub server hosts OG Xbox game nights frequently as well, so if you're up for some semi-casual HCE, this is probably your best option. Those looking for something a little more serious might enjoy Halo NHE, a mod that tweaks CE for competitive play and adds new maps designed by the community. NHE stands for Neutral Host Edition, and aims to negate that pesky host advantage by using a dedicated host Xbox. This mod is intended for LAN play, which we'll touch on in a moment, but for online play it can still have advantages, in that neither combatant will be the host. The maps and other competitive features alone make this worth checking out, even if you aren't using the neutral host capabilities. Above all else, Halo Combat Evolved is a game intended to be played on the couch with buddies or in the same room via system link, and no matter what, this is always going to give the best experience. Round up your friends, convince them to come over and play Halo with you. Buy them pizza and beer if you have to. It is worth it. And don't rule out the possibility of traveling to a LAN party. I know of folks in both Florida and South Carolina that regularly host LAN events, and there's a website with a map of Halo players if you'd like to organize or join meetups. I know this sounds like a lot more work than just hitting matchmake on MCC, but like I said, the juice is worth the squeeze. And what else would you be doing with your time? Sitting at home and playing a different game? Go out, meet people, and play Halo. It'll be fun. Halo CE is definitely the hardest Halo game to play decently in 2024, but it isn't impossible. There's no one-size-fits-all ideal way to play it these days, but I truly feel it's special enough to warrant putting up with the hurdles and imperfections in what we do have. And I'm hopeful that we'll see more developments in this department in the future. Halo 2 revolutionized online multiplayer gaming in ways that are still felt to this day. The game's party and lobby systems, as well as playlist-based matchmaking against random opponents, are still mainstays of multiplayer shooters. This virtual couch, as Bungie lovingly referred to it, set the standard for online gaming as the industry moved into the 7th console generation. But despite beginning a revolution, Halo 2 lived a relatively short life. Less than 6 years passed between its release in November of 2004 and the shuttering of Xbox Live 1.0 in April of 2010. You might have heard the story about the legendary final hours of Halo 2 matchmaking, where dedicated fans remained connected to Bungie's servers for almost a month, simply by refusing to log out. Lesser known, though, are the dedicated fans who continued playing Halo 2 by any means necessary, and never really stopped. Over the years, numerous fan projects, mods, and communities sprung up to keep matches flowing. As with Halo CE, the Master Chief Collection release is generally considered a suboptimal way to play the game. It's not quite as bad as CE, but it does suffer from many of the same problems, just to lesser degrees. The next most accessible option is Halo 2 for Windows Vista. Released in 2007, H2 Vista used the infamous Games for Windows Live system to provide Xbox 360-esque online features and multiplayer matchmaking on PC. It wasn't without its issues, but it did work as intended up until 2015, when 343 pulled the plug. Kind of a dick move, considering that it's released a broken remaster exclusively available on a $400 console that people hated, but I digress. About a year after the shutdown, the first public version of Project Cartographer released. This mod brings back Halo 2 Vista with its own dedicated online infrastructure and improved mod support. And as of an update released during the production of this video, it even fixes high refresh rates and a number of other compatibility problems that previously plagued this version of Halo 2. Project Cartographer doesn't feature traditional matchmaking, instead opting for dedicated servers accessed via a browser. But by that same token, it does occasionally become difficult to find decent matches. The player population fluctuates a lot, with player counts dipping as low as the teens in off hours, with most of the active servers being located in South America. Now, I still think this is better than MCC, but you will need to put a bit more effort into having a good experience. I mostly play Cartographer when I'm just wanting to mess around and frag in some Slayer lobbies without having to organize sessions. You can find out more or install the mod at halo2.online, link in the description. But if you want the best, most authentic Halo 2 experience, once again, you'll have to dust off a real Xbox. LAN tunneling services like Xlink Kai were, until very recently, the preferred way to play Halo 2. You don't even have to mod your console. Popular English-speaking communities sprung up around this version of the game in the late 2010s with the advent of Discord. Game nights with multiple full lobbies have been common occurrences for years now. Excellent Kai makes up the vast majority of how I've played Halo 2 multiplayer, and despite the patience required to both set up Kai and manually organize game nights, it has prevailed simply for being the most authentic and nostalgic experience possible. Until now. This is Halo 2 played over Insignia, an Xbox Live 1.0 replacement service. I covered Insignia back in 2022, right after its beta launch with just 17 supported games, but in the intervening 15 months or so, the team has made leaps and bounds, bringing that number up to a whopping 176 supported titles, over half of the console's online gaming library, with Halo 2 undoubtedly being the highest profile edition. Thanks to the Insignia team's tireless work over the last few years, Halo 2 has launched on the service feature complete. Clans, messaging, true skill rankings, they're all here and working. It is as it was. The team has even made the game's DLC obtainable via the original content download functionality to ensure matchmaking compatibility and map variety. I've been waiting for this for a long time, and it's truly incredible how well it all works in motion. Like Insignia itself, the Halo 2 support is in public beta, and there are rough edges here and there, but save for the occasional matchmaking failures and presence desyncing, everything seems to work as intended. The only catch is that playing on Insignia takes the most effort out of any of these solutions, at least for initial setup. Insignia does not work on Xbox 360 at all, so you'll need an original Xbox and some way to mod it, even if temporarily. Thanks to a recently discovered exploit, you can do this with just a USB stick and a cheap adapter, with no exploitable game needed. There's a tutorial in the description, and necessary files are available via Insignia's website. And let me tell you, this feels incredible. I guess you could say, it blows me away. I've been playing Halo 2 on Kai for a really long time, and I didn't really even realize it didn't feel right until experiencing proper live netcode. I think I'm starting to see why some folks who played Halo 2 when it was new hold it above even Halo 3. The movement, gunplay, and weapons sandbox feel incredible, and the faster pace of combat compared to Halo 3 is thrilling if you can keep up. The most basic setup takes about an hour if everything goes to plan, but once you're set, you're in, and you'll be able to play a wealth of other great multiplayer games on real Xbox hardware too. You can play Insignia on an emulator, but I'd recommend against it. Now, my PC is a little bit old, and many people are playing this way and having a great time, so your mileage might vary, but at least with my experience, I don't consider it playable. For more granular support, there's an Insignia Discord server with a help forum. I do recommend joining this even if you don't need help. It has looking for group posts, scheduled events to play less populated games, and plenty of great people to meet and play with. Adding support for Halo 2 is a bit of a watershed moment for Insignia as a service. It's a thing a lot of people were waiting to see happen before jumping on board, and I'm hoping that by making this video, I can convince a few of you to grab an Xbox, get it online, and hop on Halo like it's 2004. Halo 3 is it. It's where shooters peaked. It never got better than this, and I don't think it ever will. The community's reverence for Halo 3 endures to a magnitude few games of its vintage can claim. Even in the moment, it felt like a genuine cultural event. It remains the best-selling game in the series, and the most populated in MCC multiplayer. And on that topic, Halo 3 is the first game in the series where I feel the multiplayer holds up in the remaster. Horrific new cosmetics aside, the MCC version is generally not worse than the original, and does offer genuine improvements in certain areas. Halo 3 featured no hit-scan weapons. Every gun fires a projectile which has to physically travel in the game world. While this was mostly true of previous titles, projectile speed was fast enough that it didn't actually matter in most scenarios. But in Halo 3, Bungie purposely slowed the projectile speed to account for the larger, more open maps. If you were going to cross-map someone with a battle rifle in Halo 3, you have to earn that shit by leading your shots. However, Consider how many bullets can be flying at once in an average game. Add grenades and the rest of the physics objects on the map, all of which have to be synced between players, and you suddenly have a lot going on under the hood. Arguably too much going on, at least by 2007 networking standards, especially when your game uses peer-to-peer hosting. The original version of Halo 3 thus had a pretty noticeable host advantage. It's nowhere near as bad as Halo 1's, but I can immediately feel the difference between on and off-host gameplay. This is perhaps the most significant benefit of the Master Chief Collection. Dedicated servers eliminate this host advantage altogether and clean up hit detection in the process. That is to say, Halo 3 feels fucking amazing in the Master Chief Collection. No wonder it's where everybody spends their time. If I'm booting up MCC, there's a 90% chance I'm playing Halo 3 Team Slayer. But with all that being said, it is still the Master Chief Collection, and thus flawed. Some of the original version's best playlists, such as Social Slayer and my personal favorite, Multi-Team, are completely gone, because they don't fit into the same neat boxes as traditional 2v2 and 4v4 hoppers. 4v4 Slayer is fine, but recall that on 360, that's the ranked mode. Social Slayer was 5 vs 5, and included larger maps like Valhalla, which you basically won't get to play in MCC outside of Big Team. On the subject of maps, 3 were added from Halo Online, the foreign market free-to-play game that indirectly resulted in MCC getting a PC port in the first place. One of these is a reimagining of Turf from Halo 2, featuring the worst spawns in the game. And the other 2 are original designs for Halo Online. Now, I don't totally hate Waterfall, but neither it nor Edge were designed for Halo 3. Halo Online had a similar sandbox, but you can sprint in that game, so both maps are scaled too large for Halo 3's slower, sprintless movement. Not to mention, their art styles are completely at odds with base game maps. And look, variety is good, but since the ranked playlists are dead, social play is your only option to play Halo 3 with any expedience, meaning you have to play these maps, even if you just want to play the originals. And it's not like it's just me who dislikes these. In fact, there's a pretty well-known trick to avoid playing them on PC, where players can go in and delete the maps from their game files, preventing it from loading them in. And you can tell when someone's done this because it cancels the entire match and boots everyone back out to the main menu. Is canceling 9 other people's game because you don't like a map a dick move? Yeah, but so is diluting what is supposed to be a remaster of a classic game with your own designs that few like and few are asked for. And if a not insignificant portion of your player base is literally deleting game files to avoid playing something you forced on them, you might want to reconsider. It wouldn't be quite as egregious if this wasn't the only official way to play Halo 3 matchmaking. Back in 2021, all of the Xbox 360 Halo servers were shut down. While Xbox Live still works on the older consoles, Halo 3 had unique servers that handled ranks, progression, and most importantly, the actual matchmaking playlists. But like with Halo 2, a modder has reverse engineered and restored Halo 3's matchmaking servers. You're looking at Project Sunrise, and it is incredible. Players can still earn achievements, customize armor, use voice chat, and play practically any of the game's original playlists, including ranked ones, as well as a couple of new ones made for quick matchmaking with smaller groups. In the past 6 months, I've spent over 100 hours hosting and playing Halo 3 on a real Xbox 360, and it is every bit as good as I remembered it. MCC does spoil you for visual clarity and frame rate, not to mention the whole hit detection thing we talked about, but once you get reacclimated, it really is like riding a bike. But these things are never without their caveats, and Sunrise does have some big ones. Anyone can play Halo 3 on Sunrise. It even works on Series X, but hosting is a different story. The service works by redirecting the host's console network away from now-defunct Halo 3 servers and towards custom-hosted ones. Thanks to the 360's extensive security, this isn't as simple as a DNS change like on other consoles. The host of every matchmaking party needs a modified Xbox 360 so that they can run a special plugin. If you want to play ranked or certain free-for-all playlists, make that at least 2 modified consoles per session. After the original Xbox's rampant hacking and piracy issues, Microsoft did their damnedest to keep people from doing the same with the Xbox 360. Nearly every game console in existence has been soft-modded, but not the Xbox 360. Modifying this thing involves difficult, precise soldering, multiple pieces of specialized hardware, and some rather advanced software fuckery. playing on Xbox Live with a modded console also requires a stealth service and constant vigilance, because connecting to Live without one results in an instant console ban. It's a headache, to say the least. Thankfully, there's a really dedicated community for Sunrise, and in recent months, more and more people have been building or buying their own modded consoles. There are more than enough hosts to keep even the best game night turnouts running games all night long. So if you, for instance, wanted to join us for some good old Halo 3, all you have to do is join the Discord, wait for someone to ping players, and then ask for an invite. Now with all that being said, remember that all Sunrise does is replace the Halo 3 server. You're still using standard, legitimate Xbox Live for the accounts and the connections themselves. You even need to buy gold. So, while this works for now, the imminent closure of the Xbox 360 marketplace means it's not unreasonable to expect Microsoft will sunset the rest of Xbox 360 Live at some point in the next few years. And when that happens, Sunrise will stop working, and Halo 3 for Xbox 360 will likely be dead for good. System link play via LAN tunneling won't be feasible for most, since Xbox 360 games have a mandatory 30 millisecond ping limit on local connections that cannot be bypassed on stock consoles. One of the Insignia devs has entertained the idea of maybe one day working on a similar service for Xbox 360, but not until Xbox Live for that console is well and truly defunct. There is theoretically another option, but it is, again, years away from being viable for widespread use. In addition to real Xbox Live, Sunrise has also been engineered and proven to work in a network-enabled fork of Xenia, the Xbox 360 emulator. The developer's documentation indicates that the same method used to get Sunrise working in emulation could probably be adapted to other games as well, so there is a hopeful future for Xbox Live preservation via emulation. But at time of writing, this netplay fork of Xenia is sparsely maintained, significantly behind the latest version, and generally more difficult to build and use than plain Xenia Canary. It's developed by the same person as Sunrise, which is a can of worms we'll get to later down the line, but they themselves refer to it as not PR ready, so take my coverage as more for the sake of thoroughness than any sort of endorsement or encouragement to go download it. It's also not unreasonable to think that most of the game's existing player base will not be able or willing to make the jump to emulation. At this point in time, Xenia still requires a pretty beefy PC for good results, and while it is a valuable tool for preservation and accessibility of games going forward, it simply isn't the same as playing on real hardware. Much of the novelty of Sunrise is using the original console to play it. If I'm gonna be playing PC anyways, I may as well hoard the same group of people into private matches on MCC. Still, I'd like to think we'll be playing Halo 3 via Sunrise for a few more years to come, and if you'd like to join us, there is a link to the original Halo 3 Discord in the description. Do please read the rules and FAQ, be nice to the hosts and staff, and absolutely definitely do not forget your flame print beanie. As a little aside before I move on to Halo Reach, late in this video's production, an update was released for the long-dormant Eldewrito, a game based on the leak build of the cancelled Halo Online. It's a bit beyond the scope of this video, but I feel compelled to mention Eldewrito because it has mod support, and one of those mods turns it into a near one-to-one recreation of Halo 3 multiplayer. I don't really recommend downloading Eldewrito just for that, though it feels pretty off. It doesn't have the modern controller enhancements from MCC, and given that it's unfinished software, it runs like dog shit. Eldewrito is also worth checking out just for its extensive library of mods, which are downloaded through the client when you join a server in a similar manner to Valve games. Sometimes in a really similar manner to Valve games. The player base is a bit sparse, and the performance problems will be a turnoff for some, but the resurgence of this mod bears mentioning nonetheless. Halo Reach was added to the Master Chief Collection in 2019, rounding out the complete Halo collection for Xbox One. Not too long after, Reach would spearhead the franchise's gradual rollout on PC. Reach is in this sort of weird spot when it comes to the community. It's the final Bungie game, and definitely the densest in terms of content. The Forge and custom games communities flourished in Reach, and for casual multiplayer, it has a lot to offer. But even back in 2010 and 11, Reach was lambasted by the competitive community for, well, frankly, for just not being very good. And it's really hard to argue with the common complaints. The game's primary precision weapon didn't fire with precision. Armor abilities, one of the most hyped up new features, were horribly balanced. And map design was so subpar that MLG matches took place almost exclusively on forged remakes of maps from previous games. Bungie would address complaints from both competitive and casual players with a title update later in the game's life. Weapon bloom was reduced and armor lock was nerfed, but this wasn't applied universally. Instead, the tweaks were only put into some playlists. You could play Big Team with the updated armor lock and spread changes, but if you backed out to go play Team Slayer afterwards, you'd have to readjust your aim and playstyle back to how the game launched. Look, I have a little bit of a soft spot for Reach, but to put it politely, this game is so fucking stupid. From the core design decisions made during development to the half-assed band-aids slapped over only some of the boo-boos as Bungie sprinted for the hills, Reach boggles my mind. In the Master Chief Collection, Reach's title update is applied across the board, and having recently revisited pre-patch Reach, that's definitely for the best. Also, Reach's performance on 360 is rough. It's framey and ugly, and the blur on the sprint animation just hurts my eyes. Reach looks and runs like a dream on MCC by comparison, and that version also enjoys much of the same netcode and hit reg improvements as Halo 3. There are improvements to Forge, and you can almost always find someone hosting Speed Halo in the Customs Games browser, which is a plus because Speed Halo rules.
Suicide.
So, as much as I hate to say it, if you want to play Halo Reach, you're probably going to want the Master Chief Collection. But I'm me, so I have a few things to bitch about. For one, MCC doesn't have the Xbox 360 version's menus or menu music, which were kick-ass, gorgeous, and remarkably more functional than the garbage 343 saddles us with. This is the case with all 6 of the games, but except for ODST's seamless campaign transitions, Reach's UI suffers the most severely out of any game in the collection. Probably the most severe loss when making the jump to MCC is Reach's progression and leveling system. Taking notes from the rise of Modern Warfare, Reach introduced a persistent character rank, with a big XP bar that would fill at the end of each match. The top echelons of rank in Halo Reach were a status symbol, and it sucks there's no equivalent in the remaster. The armory and credit systems are also gone, armor is either unlocked by default or earned in the battle passes, and while that isn't the end of the world, it was a pretty big part of the Reach experience, and I miss it. These aren't deal breakers, and I still feel that MCC is the best way to actually play Halo Reach. If you are missing that original customization, there is a way to experience it, but there's a catch. Back in January, Halo Sunrise was updated, not only to add support for pre-release builds of Halo 3, such as Pimps at Sea, but also early beta support for Halo Reach. And the emphasis there is on early. This is not fully working, and it never will be. Reach relied far more heavily on Bungie's servers than Halo 3, where that game handled armor unlocks and customization locally. The Reach armory and leveling system entirely relies on a server that no longer exists. Sunrise can unlock armor and display the Inheritor rank, but only for those with modded 360s running the plugin. There is no way around this. You will never be able to customize your Halo Reach armor online again without a modded console. And even then, everything is granted by default, you won't be able to progress through the ranks. Everyone that doesn't run the plugin will simply look like your default Grey Noble 6. This is in addition to issues matching in certain playlists, including a rather large number that straight up do not work. And most of the working ones do not use the title update rule set, and trust me, you're gonna miss it. Those last 2 things were supposed to be solved with time, but at the moment it seems unlikely that Reach Sunrise will ever receive additional updates. And this is where I have to diverge a little bit into a story. Back in January, a certain popular Halo YouTuber dropped a video about Reach Sunrise on the day the update came out. He made the video in one day, didn't fact check it with a developer or knowledgeable folks in the community, and linked his subscribers to the OG Halo 3 Discord without asking the moderators if they would be including Reach under their umbrella, or encouraging his viewers to read FAQs or do their own due diligence. This led to an onslaught of new users inundating every channel with questions that had already been answered, and coincided with the Sunrise dev leaving Discord servers and privating the GitHub. They were already kinda notorious for disappearing for months at a time to work on other stuff, which is fair enough. We were incredibly lucky to have Sunrise in the state it's in, especially given that Halo 3 is almost entirely functional. But there were clear plans for improvements to Reach that we might never get, and it's hard to ignore this video's proximity to the developer's departure. They have since said they don't think they're ever going to come back to Halo dev, albeit for external reasons, but despite what they say, I really do suspect this outpouring of public attention at least contributed to their decision to leave. I'm not naming the dev because I don't want anyone to go find their socials and beg them to return, and I'm also not naming the YouTuber because I don't want to start a witch hunt. It was an exciting bit of news, and he got overzealous. It was an honest mistake, and one that he did not repeat for Halo 2 on Insignia. So, just let this be a cautionary tale about making sure small fan projects are ready before you decide to cover them, and if it's something super early in development, or the significant risk of being DMCA'd, ask the creator before you showcase their work. And to that point, I gave a moderator from the Halo Classic Hub community an advanced draft of this script for feedback and suggestions to make sure I was giving you the clearest picture possible. Anyways, Halo Reach on Xbox 360 is playable, but it's not something I want to play multiple times a week the way I often do Halo 3, and I don't see that changing. If you do want to get in on Reach Sunrise, it's played in Halo Classic Hub, otherwise MCC is going to provide the best experience for modern play. More so than the Call of Duty or Battlefield videos I've made in this style, this video was an intimidating one to make. Because unlike Call of Duty, where the games don't work, or Battlefield, where player population is an objectively limiting factor, the best way to play Halo is subjective. Every method I've showcased in this video is feasible, and what ticks the boxes for me might not for you. Pushing all of my editorialization to the side, the point of this video was first and foremost to make sure that all of your options are on the table. It's just up to you to pick what works best for you and your friends. This series is really special and it has more to offer than I could ever hope to encapsulate in a 30-minute video. Whether you're playing for the first time or climbing back into the saddle after a long time away, all that matters to me is that you can find the experience you're looking for, and I hope this video did its part in leading you to it. What Halo has given us, we have continued to give back. This community has shown it will go to any lengths to continue playing these games. Like most of my hobbies, my infatuation with Halo waxes and wanes, and after finishing this video, it'll probably be a while before I pick up the BR once again. But I know that when I return, no matter how long it's been, Halo will not have changed. It will always be this good. No matter what controller's in my hand or how many frames grace my screen per second, melting away an evening in Halo's comfortable glow will always feel like turning back time. And sometimes, that's all you need.